Now to talk a little bit more about how work has changed forever, I'm going to invite two leaders and good friends whose companies have become synonymous with remote work. Stewart Butterfield, CEO and founder of Slack, and Eric Yuan, the CEO and founder of Zoom. Hello. Give us a wave.
Hello.
All right.
Mac.
Now, guys, both of your companies have been truly at the center of our rapidly changing work lives. Over the past year, your products have become part of our daily vernacular, right? We no longer do a video call, we jump on a Zoom, we don't message a colleague, we send a Slack. But as we all know too well, when you're building a plane and flying it at the same time, as we all have been in the last year with remote work, and you particularly have been in your own organizations, you discover some pretty unique challenges. So let's dig in. Starting, all three of our companies were built to help people work better together, which means helping them work efficiently, productively, across different teams. During the pandemic, companies have seen a huge amount of increase, though, in burnout across teams, organizations, much of which is connected with an inability to disconnect from work. What are you guys doing about healthy work-life balance within your companies? And has it meant any proactive steps you've taken either in the company culture or individually? Stewart, maybe let's start with you. Culture is a big deal at Slack. How have you adapted your company's culture over the last year?
Well, I think there's almost too many things to name, and it's one of those instances, pretty kind of rare instances, where I don't feel like I had to do that much. The culture was so important to people that there's this real step up, and I don't know the exact percentage, but more than 30% of our employees started post-pandemic. So that's that's a really big shift. I mean, we used to fly everyone to San Francisco. We have offices in Munich and Tokyo and all over the place, and we would fly everyone to San Francisco for a week to come meet people. And the team that runs that onboarding just kind of stepped up really quickly, just like the recruiters did. I think we had 500 on-site interviews scheduled at the time that we shut down the offices, and made it work. And I do sometimes worry that we're kind of running on the stored fat or the kind of accumulated social capital that had accrued over the course of the years prior. But on the other hand, I think there's been a couple of new elements. So one of the things we did was called Fridays. I'm not responsible for the branding there, but that's it's about one Friday off per month, and it's not really that huge of a give. It's not. I don't feel like we're being outrageously generous, but it has such a real impact on people. Just having that time off when everyone else was taking time off, because as we've all experienced, the Europeans were actually pretty smart to all go on vacation at the same time.
Eric, what about yourself? We know strong culture is super important, arguably more important when employees are remote. What have you guys done about culture at Zoom in the last year?
Yeah, Mac, you're so right. So at Zoom, our core value is care, meaning care about the community, customer, company, teammates, as well as ourselves. Our culture is about delivering happiness, meaning for me as the CEO of the company, my number one priority is make sure our employees, they feel very happy. I think good news, we did invest a lot prior to the pandemic crisis. Otherwise, there's no way for us to survive last year, given the 30 times more usage jump, plus all those challenges we were facing last year. The good news, we really wanted to sit down to understand our employees, the pain point, really solicit the feedback, truly care about them. I'll give you some examples. Like last year, based on employees' feedback, we completely, I think, expanded, our employees' health benefits. Like grocery, delivery, a new mental health program, make sure they do not have internal meetings on Wednesdays. Plus, we also partner with others, such as American, Heart Association, for a happy half-hour programs to share, those strategies around the stress reduction. Overall, the culture is extremely important, especially during this pandemic crisis. We just sit down with our employees, make sure understand their pain point, take some quick actions.
No, I think we've done a lot of similar things at Atlassian. I like those ideas. Meeting-free Wednesday sounds like a good idea. One of the things we've done recently that I thought was interesting is a large chunk of the company took a creative refresh day, where the only sort of instruction was take a day, but you had to be creative and refresh. And we had everything from woodworking and pottery and kind of physical things, to people sketching and drawing, to people doing, writing stories, documents, like all sorts of different things. Didn't have to be work-related, just had to be a creative refresh, but you had to share it back with the company. And I think the reverberations of that, weirdly, around that team culturally were really interesting, and people learned about all sorts of people's new skills that you don't get in a sort of functional remote work environment. So let's talk about, that acceleration of flexible work has come somewhat out of necessity, not of design, right? I often say we've all been involved in the largest rapid experiment of telecommuting in the world in the last 12 months. Conversation, though, is starting to switch as we hopefully see our way out of the current situation to the question of what the future would look like or should look like when we don't need to work from home, but we have a lot more choices, right? You have cheerleaders on one end of the spectrum of go back to the office, we're all going to end up back where we were. And then other people saying, well, we're going to be very remote. It's going to continue this way. It's the future of the world. My guess is we have some pretty diverse views, and there's not a single answer here. But Stewart, I know you have pretty strong opinions. Can we hold on to this remote world? Should we? And if we should, how do you see that playing out?
Actually, I think the way you phrased it there was really good. We don't have to, but we can. And I think that's the right way to look at it, because I think a lot of the conversations get pretty confused when people start to think about, okay, what's going to be different than the way it used to be? Because there's a kind of assumption that whatever happened up to February 2020 is their default, and that's the true reality, and we're in this aberration now. Whether this is an aberration or not, we're in it, right? And people have already adjusted. I got a stat before we started this call. 20% of Americans have moved. 20% of American workers have moved since the pandemic started, which sounds like outrageously high to me. But whether that's true or not, we've certainly been allowing employees to move. We've hired in places we haven't hired before, and you really can't unscramble that egg. So I think the right way to look at it is, okay, everything worked. I mean, at least for us, I feel we were probably marginally more productive this last year than we were the year prior. Everything worked, and we're going to get back the ability to visit with grandparents and have childcare and go to restaurants and concerts and get massages and our nails done and all of that stuff. So everything worked, and life is much better. And then on top of that, you get the office as an additional tool or resource that you can add to the equipment that we've built around our digital infrastructure over the last year. And I think, to me, that's actually kind of exciting, because we have a lot more options. I don't expect that that many people will be coming to the office Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, unless their job specifically is about being in the office, because so many people like that flexibility, much less business travel, shorter commutes, more time with family. And I feel 80% confident about most of what I'm saying, because there's definitely a lot of uncertainty left. But I guess my hope is that people look at this as an opportunity to reimagine the way that they work, because it's pretty hard to get your head above water at any point to kind of just think critically about ways to improve. And this is one of the rare shots that we'll have in our lifetimes.
Yeah, I agree. I think the reimagining is hard when you're forced into doing something in a certain way. Eric, mate, Zoom is obviously a big element of all three of our remote work cultures as a product. But I know you yourself are advocating more for a hybrid environment. Why is that? How do you think it plays out from here?
Yeah, so first of all, I second the Stuart's point, right? Life is getting better if you can support employees work anywhere remotely. Having said that, I do not think employees, they should go back to the office as before, or we all work remotely 5 days a week. We also need some social interaction. That's why hybrid will become mainstream. However, when it comes to hybrid, sometimes the employees work from home or work in the office or maybe work on the way. The challenge will be, how can we make sure there's no productivity loss, right? That's the number one challenge. That's why, we need to make sure giving employees the best tools, the best breed service, like, Atlassian tools, Jira, Trello, Slack, Zoom. Otherwise, there's no IT support when they work from home or remotely, right? The best breed service can truly help us. Also, when some employees go back to the office, especially for large conf room, right? 5 employees are sitting in the conf room. If I join remotely, guess what? I feel like I'm not a part of that conversation. How to make sure the product can really evolve to embrace that, the working, the style, like a smart gallery view, right? Three of us, all of them remotely will see us, not only just see the one view, right? A lot of feature enhancement, a lot of product, innovation can truly enable the hybrid. I strongly believe, hybrid is the future. Give employee flexibility. Anywhere you can work. With greater tools like Jira, like Slack, no need to work together in the office anymore.
Yeah, the need and separation is interesting. I mean, I know personally, I actually had more than an hour commute in this morning to get to the studio here, and had a spontaneous meeting on Zoom that was organized on Slack, and literally started with a 10-minute pre-read of a Confluence document. So that was an example of you're on the move, right? Adding work into places that otherwise would have been, even 2 years ago would have felt hard. Maybe I could have had a phone call kind of a thing. It seems like it's pretty different. I know our most interesting observation that we've sort of used as a totem as we organize our Team Anywhere world is we're trying to separate how we work from where we work. Like, it's a fundamental philosophical separation. They used to be the same thing, and we're actually separating them very, very much. And what that means is when you do get together, what is the purpose of that? Right? We all want that human connection, but we meet to socialize much more at Atlassian now, whereas we used to meet to work. And once you separate those, you end up with very different constructs and office layouts and stuff over time, but we're all learning. Speaking of learning, the nitty-gritty of the actual changing construct of 9 to 5, right? Our customers constantly asking us how we're doing it. What we don't often talk about is the fear factor of making such a large cultural shift, right? Maybe I'll flip over, start with Eric. Eric, how about you? Where are people struggling? What is there scary sides of things from a Zoom perspective? Do you even very forward-thinking as you guys are, you must have some fears, and how are you thinking about that from friction points you're hearing from staff?
I think, first of all, I hope I can have, 8 to 5, working hours. Quite often that's not like that, right? Could be 7 to 7, 8 to 8, right? It's just long hours. I remember last year, on a peak day, I had a total of 19 Zoom meetings. I'm even tired of Zoom calls, right? It's just a big, the challenge. However, I look at our business as a whole. I think the number one challenge is we almost doubled the size of a company last year. The onboarding process is totally different. Used to be we can fly every employee to our headquarters in San Jose, California. We have a social interaction, dinners, lunches. It's a great experience. But now we cannot do that anymore. How to make sure we can evolve our onboarding process to embrace, remote, the recruitment, right? I did not see almost all those employees we hired last year. That's number one challenge. Number two challenge is not about, the engineer team or rest of the team. It's about the sales team. And then the sales culture is different, right? They need in-person meetings for coaching or mentoring, but they cannot, come back to the office. How to fix that problem? That's another challenge. Overall, I think the challenge, comes from almost everywhere. But biggest challenge is how to completely embrace this new hybrid working mode, right? And that's something is new. We are still learning, along the way.
Interesting. It's definitely different for different functions and organizations within a single company. We sometimes think about, Zoom as a singular entity, but actually within it, there's a lot of different frictions. Stewart, what about you over in the Slack world? Was it scary for you guys going remote? Is there scary a word that you associated with that? And what are some of the biggest frictions you've had to surmount?
I'm not sure if I used that before, but I think it's right. People don't like uncertainty. That's a lesson that I've learned over and over again in my life. And there was just so much uncertainty. I mean, obviously about the course of the pandemic and what was going to happen to the world and all of that, but even just within the office. I mean, I think there was people who thought that we really had to lock things down. We were worried about people messing around and playing video games all day. Other people were worried about the other extreme, which is people just working all the time. And I think we saw more or less every possible combination. And we really had to kind of feel our way out of it. Definitely a time when people feel like they have some kind of purpose, mission they're trying to fulfill, or values they're trying to live up to, made a real difference because there was something to anchor onto. But yeah, I think it's totally accurate to say that it was scary in many ways. And I think, I'm really fortunate in that the impact on my lifestyle is probably better. I don't like traveling for business all that much, and saving the commute time and all that. And I think for a lot of the individual contributors, engineers, designers, salespeople, it could be a positive change as well. In the middle, though, middle managers, kind of line managers, I think it was a really, really tough position because they were stuck between both ends and really had no guidebook and didn't have a framework to think about mental health of their team members in a way that's just 10x in terms of prominence, or how people should be working or how much they should be working. Like I said, in the end, we came out, I think, slightly improved, and I'm optimistic about kind of increasing the number of tools we have available. But I wouldn't want to go through that again.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. Eric looked at it as sort of functional lens, and you're looking at it a hierarchical, well, like a leveling lens. But I agree, it's probably problems all around the place. I think it's made us re-look at the old world where people are scared too. I had someone ask me the other day, how do you know your people are working? And I thought about that, and I said, hey, the guy that sits 3 desks over for you, do you really know that person is working when you're sitting in an office? I mean, they could be doing something else all day. It's like, no, I know they're there mentally because they're sitting near me. And I'm like, and even I could see that person thinking hard and being like, no, that's a terrible answer. Like, I actually don't know. I just thought I knew. Yeah. I'm having to reconsider and reconceptualize a lot of that. We've
honestly, Mike, for that one, I would rather people spend twice as much time scrolling Instagram or playing video games as they might today, if it meant that we didn't do a lot of making work for each other. Just generating meetings that perpetuate more meetings and people wanting to get feedback from everyone. I think there's efficiencies to be gained that have nothing to do with people taking breaks, and taking breaks is probably a good thing.
Yes, I think ironically, some of those efficiencies, even if your company goes back to a fully in-office, sort of in-person environment, you may end up finding a lot of those efficiencies pervading because of the things we've learned during the last year. So maybe there's something for everyone's future. Eric, keeping to you and looking at the future of work. A lot of opinions about the immediate future. We've talked a little bit about as the vaccine rolls out next year. Let's look further afield. That's theoretically all of our jobs, right? 2031, 10 years from now, where will the world be with modern work? What will it feel like 10 years from now? What do you think? You get to be, Stewart was 80% correct before. You get a 50-50 line here on 10 years.
Wow, if we can fast forward to 2031, that's amazing. But anyway, so Mike, you know that I'm a fan of Sydney, right? I'm a fan of what a beautiful city. I'd like to travel there, beautiful country. Ideally, Stewart, you, me, 3 of us, we should sit together for this conversation somewhere near your campus or Starbucks coffee. Unfortunately, Zoom does not offer any of those great experiences, right? I think in the future we might. Imagine a world where, say, 3 of us, we have a call like this, Stewart get a cup of coffee, I can enjoy, or tea, I can enjoy the smell remotely, right? Or Mike, we did not see each other in person for a long time, I really want to give a big hug. You will feel my intimacy, right? I will feel my hand shaking as well. Also, even if we speak a different language in the future, with AI, live translation, we can understand each other. Imagine the 2 persons, one is in Africa, another one in Europe. Anytime they can talk to each other, understand each other. Also, after the conversation, we can automatically generate a meeting summary. I think in 10 years, all those cool features can truly deliver a better experience than face-to-face meeting. That's a word I'm looking forward to.
Man, smelling Stewart's coffee remotely and giving him a hug. I love that idea. That's going to be awesome. Stewart, flip it around. We're all in companies that are hiring pretty hard. I think about a quarter to a third of our companies never been into an office. I think, Eric, you said it was a half. We're all in a constant talent battle and trying to hire really hard, right? Flip it around to the other side. Companies at the other end of the spectrum. Do you think companies will lose if they don't move to hybrid, right? Or if not full remote, like a hybrid model? Do you think there's a danger for companies all around the world in different spots? Is it different in Silicon Valley? You said you're in New York at the moment. How do you think about the loss of talent, the challenge for companies that don't at least embrace some of this?
Yeah, I think there's 2 reasons why you would want to invest enough in that kind of the digital infrastructure that supports productivity and collaboration, so that you can have employees working in a lot more flexible way. And the first one is you can just hire more places, right? Like we've hired people, engineers, salespeople, designers, accountants in all kinds of cities where we just couldn't hire before because we were kind of limited to commuting radius around a place where we already had an office, and that limit is gone. So I mean, that's a huge increase in the available talent pool. The other one, though, is there's going to be market pressure one way or the other, and we'll see. And I can definitely see a continuum or a spectrum of how strongly the corporate culture is tied to being in the office, and that being something that people select for. But all other things being equal, if you have the option that's to go somewhere else, to you have a sick parent and you want to go back to where you grew up for 6 months, or you want to spend 2 months of the year in a ski town, even if you do live near the office of your company, having that flexibility is just, I think it's so valuable. And it's hard for me to imagine if people are kind of more or less equal, thinking about the career opportunity, the kind of projects they get to work on, the compensation. If you have two offers and one says you don't have to be in the office, and the other one says you do have to be in the office, it's a no-brainer. So I mean, again, we'll see how that plays out, but I think it won't be long for the market to tell us what we all need to be doing.
Okay, I agree. We'll see. We'll all see. I know we're all betting kind of on one end of the spectrum, so we'll see. I think we're on the good end.
Yeah.
Last question. Let's end with a fun one. So we've all seen the guy on the BBC where his kids ran in, and we've all worked from home now for more than a year, surrounded by partners, kids, pets, and lots of potentially embarrassing and/or funny moments. I'm going to ask about the funniest or most embarrassing thing that's happened to you directly on a Zoom call this year. And so you know that I'm in the same boat. I'm going to go first. So I have two stories. Firstly, I was on an investor call. You mentioned, Stewart, not missing airplane food. I certainly don't miss a lot of the airplane food. But the good part about it for me is not having to travel to the US all the time for investor calls. So I was on an investor call with a lot of people, and one of them stopped and said, I think you have a stray chicken in the background there, and you can sort of see a bit of my yard on the side of the chicken walk past. And I had to say, no, actually, that's actually one of my chickens. Like, we have chickens that roam around, and that's a normal part of my background. Is it distracting to you, et cetera? And I had my wife on a global town hall we have every Friday morning, 6,000, 7,000 people now listening in live, real time. But because it's such a broadcast on a Zoom broadcast, you can't see any faces. So sometimes she peeks through the window and sees, if there are no faces on my screens, she assumes I'm not on a call. So she kind of comes in, gives me a big kiss, says, good morning, et cetera. And I'm going on my day. I'm going off she has a couple of businesses going off for my businesses. So she goes out, and she didn't know until her phone lights up that there was 6,500 people watching that little mini exchange as they all start pinging her. So I was like, okay, yeah, well, it was a very human moment. Who wants to go first? It's multiple choice. Anyone can stick up their hand? Come on. You must have had some things happen. Stewart?
I'll go first. My dogs intrude on the scene pretty often, but I don't think that's embarrassing at all. And people tend to like it and think it's cute and kind of builds rapport. All of mine are autoplay videos, man. It's so frustrating that I can't figure out how to turn all of them off forever. And there was one, I'm going to obscure the details slightly, but a customer meeting, and before the meeting, someone had sent me a link to an interview they had done on TV. They have a pretty distinctive voice, and this was an interview that didn't really go very well. So while the call is happening, I switched through some tabs to try to find the answer to something, and that video starts auto playing. So imagine you're the customer, and now you have this like embarrassing interview in your voice being like spoken back to you over the phone. So that was definitely a pretty awkward one.
I can empathize. Eric?
Yeah.
Oh boy, I think I had so many embarrassing moments last year. I do not know which one to start. But anyway, I think one of the most embarrassing moments I had last year was on our earnings call. We are using Zoom for earnings call. And during the call, and it comes to my turn, so many people, almost 2,000 people joined our earnings call. And I was muted. And also, I'm not a host. And the host does not give me the privilege to unmute myself for the first 1 or 2 minutes. My God, I was muted. And very soon there's the press release. Zoom CEO has no idea how to use Zoom. My God, that's the most embarrassing moments. I had no idea how to unmute myself.
I can empathize with that. I've seen some of your earnings calls. I love that you sent one of your analysts a camera because their webcam was crap. I remember that. They couldn't turn on their camera, so you sent them one in real time. I thought that was very funny. Yes, we've all had many of those experiences. So guys, thanks. I know you're super busy. I appreciate you both taking the time out of your day to talk with us, all our customers, and I'm sure a lot of your joint customers are on the call at the moment. I hope next time you can join us in person. Or else, if we get to smelling each other's coffee and hugs, then maybe we'll get there. Either way, I appreciate it. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Mac.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for tuning in. The conversation doesn't stop here. You can check out the extended version by visiting our Work Life blog. Back to you, Dom.